Next on the agenda for legislative 2025-12. That is an ordinance amending chapter 882.07 titled Credit for Tax Paid to Other Municipalities under the Million Codified Ordinance, reestablishing a full 1% credit. I believe I asked for this to be put on, and I think we need to have some discussion on it before any readings. So I'll open the floor to discussion. And this finance record, with this, if this was to be voted on in reverse, this would, I'm not quoting your numbers, I'm reflecting here, but this would short our road fund where this money goes roughly $500,000.
I think $500,000 and 600,000. I was looking for that page myself. I think it was closer to an average of about 600,000.
And all of this increase that the subject goes towards the road fund.
Correct.
I've given this a little bit of thought, and my position has always been, I hate to lose services, city services that we're already providing, right? So part of this is we're going to lose $500,000. However, we're talking about this $2 million that can be transferred over into a street or into the road fund, right? So if we lost $500,000, $600,000 a year, if we move forward with this, and we took that $2 million and set it aside and put it in that fund, I mean, it almost would cover 3-4 years of what we'd be losing. So that would give 3-4 years tax break to our residents while we're dealing with this water issue, while we're dealing with potentially the school board levy passing, which is going to cause $100 or $200 a month, or not a month, a year, people's taxes. So I'm not opposed. One thing I'd like council to consider, and I'd probably be on board with this, is if we also made an exemption, income tax exemption for any resident who's 65 and older who has earned income outside the city. Another one of my things I've been bringing up is I'd like to do something for our seniors and keep them here in our city. So if we could amend this ordinance to also include an income tax exemption for residents 65 and older on income earned outside our city, you might twist my arm enough to be in favor of passing this ordinance.
You won't have to twist my arm too hard to not tax somebody. So I'm on board with that. I would recommend separating them and doing them completely separately. But I would also be on board with that as well. The main reason why I brought this forward is, I've said it plenty of times, I think that taxation is theft, and we've been taking money from people. You guys talked about the increased sewage bills a lot. One way to help out with that is to stop taking as much money from our citizens. You can look at it as we're losing, well, use your 600 grand number a year, or we just brought in, we're bringing in an extra, close to $1 million with the property taxes. So in net, we're still ahead there. This isn't exactly, I don't look at it as services that we're providing that we're now taking away. I look at it as the council back in, I think it was 17 or 16, came and decided just to, hey, 7 people voted to take away 0.5% tax credit. After years of failing to have an increase in property taxes, or not property taxes, I'm sorry, income taxes, that finally passed on a special election with the caveat that, hey, if you work outside the city, you'll get credit for this. It's a separate credit than we're talking about reestablishing here, but I just look at it as it was 7 members of council years ago just came, just took that 0.5% away from the people. I want to give that money back to the people. The biggest stimulus you can have is to cut taxes. I would much rather cut state and federal taxes. Unfortunately, I have no say in any of that stuff. But we're still net ahead as far as money coming into the city that we can set aside for the streets and such with the extra property tax money that we have coming in here. But I would fully support limiting even more so income taxes on whatever number you want to put on there.
I have a draft that I could provide the council using the same, I'm assuming you drafted up the the current ordinance that's being presented in front of us. So I'd be more happy to send that out to Gwen, to send it to everybody else with the language to exclude income tax or income tax exemption for 65 and older on income earned outside the city only. And maybe we could, discuss it at next council meeting or the next legislative meeting. I hate to push out that far, but I do think it needs to be in the same ordinance to make sense.
Can I get a question with regard to that 1.2 million from property tax increase? How much of that is specifically not going to parks or to other funds? What is that?
The amount that's going to the general fund is around 600,000.
So the 600,000, and then to Drew's point, the 600 roughly, so it's kind of a wash. We were in a different financial position many years ago, and I wasn't around when that was enacted, but we were, to Homer's point, at one point, he said there was about $300,000 in the bank. We were in dire financial straits. Right now, we're carrying over a significant amount of revenue. If we're going to look at it, now's the time to look at it, and I'm open to some of what you're saying.
Councilman, out there helping our seniors. We haven't done really any programming for our seniors, and that's another topic I'd like to discuss with council at some point, but it's a start. So this is a little start to help our seniors now, and then we can continue to look at other ways that either the administration or council can help them out, help them keep them in their homes.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm the only dinosaur up here from the 2016 day, terrible day. I did not want to vote that way. The city was in terrible financial condition to need the money. An unpopular vote. I didn't like doing it. I think we had maybe one before that week. There was a certain amount of percentage that we took away, and then there was another percent. It benefits my fellow citizens. I want to do that. I don't like this not being there. But also keep in mind, we have an obligation to fix the roads in this city. Fixing the roads in the city increases property values for people. It increases their financial status. It's a little more complicated than just percentage. If it happens, it's going to benefit me. Giggity skip. But keep in mind, when you make that vote, you're balancing a number of things out. It's not all going to be beneficial to everybody's property value. We're going to talk about our streets, buildings, and grounds for the streets to fix, but we're going to talk about cutting out $600,000, $500,000. Well, it's going to benefit our citizens who work outside the city, and potentially the 65 and older, however that goes. I agree 100% with Councilman Word that should be separate. But regardless, no free lunches. I mean, something's got to give somewhere. Sounds good, and I appreciate it. And it was good when we moved here, folks. We moved here in 1999. It was there. So I'm just sitting here and say I didn't benefit from that for a long time would be hypocritical. But there's going to be a price to be paid. Either way, because our citizens are now not getting that benefit. We have a ton of citizens who work out of the city. So I appreciate the discussion. The fact that it's brought up, it's an important issue.
I have a question about the senior exemption. Oftentimes, people who are 65 and over look for part-time jobs that are close to their homes, that don't involve a commute. So I wonder if it wouldn't be advantageous, if we really want to serve seniors, to make that exemption be for 65 and older, regardless of where they work.
Yeah, I'm all for that. I just didn't want to throw a whole lot at the city at one time. I don't know how much income is coming in from 65 and older, right, that work within the city compared to working outside the city. But clearly, there's a lot of people, unfortunately, that are 65 and older who retired and have to go back to work to afford to live, just in general, and not to mention all the additional expenses in our city now with the bars, potential school levy. It's concerning to me. So yeah, I'm all for that. So I don't know what that would look like separate, but if somebody could draft that up for our next meeting, either the law director or Gwen or I can help. Yeah, let's look at that.
Does the draft that you have it intertwined with this one? Correct?
It does, yeah.
Something to keep in mind also in drafting those ordinances, the original one was effective retroactive to January. So that's just a consideration in that we may be in a situation of either repaying or having it deducted from future payments through the rest of the year.
It's your recommendation we make it effective the date we put it into play, so we don't have to retroactive,
I think that's
basically reimburse
definitely possible.
for this year.
Well, we put it on for the next meeting, maybe in the meantime, we could try to get something drafted or have the law director draft it up separate.
So we'll shoot for anyone 65 and older, exemption inside the city and outside the city.
That'd be my opinion, across the board.
Yeah, I'm all for that.
In the same ordinance,
Make sure
No,
7
separate.
years it's on the books.
Yeah.
Two separate.
separate ordinances.
Yeah. Mr. Tapp?
Homer Tab, 3972 Edgewater Drive. Thank you. I hadn't planned to get up and talk about this. I'm very pleased to hear that many of you are open to reducing it by 0.5%, which I think is fair to folks. But when I hear a falsehood repeatedly stated over and over again, I have to speak to it. It's been stated over and over again that there's 0.5% that goes to the street fund, and that's in the ordinance. I defy anyone to find it in the ordinance because I have all the ordinances and it doesn't say it anywhere. There is not one word that textually commits it from the ordinance you passed in 2016 in 3 days by emergency in December, 3 consecutive days at the end of the year. There is not one word in the ordinance that replaced the correction that Rita made that repealed that 0.5%. So it doesn't exist. Money is put into the streets fund from the general fund by the budget and resolution of this council every year. And if you base it on what you received out of 0.5% of the income tax credit, God bless you. Now, as to the increase from 1% to 1.5% for folks who work inside the city, yes, there was a textual for that, but not for the credit. That's not true. There were 2 removals of credit of 0.5%, one in 2013 and one in 2016. I don't care which one you use, it's a reason to take it away. But the fact is, you've accumulated that much money every year since 2017 when that last 0.5% went in. Mathematically, that's the fact. Furthermore, I thought that we had $700,000 in the general fund a year from the finance director's report, from Erie County's report, for the real estate tax increase, plus permissive tax, I thought. So I think it's covered for a good many years. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah, that's the next one, Glenn.
Yes, we'll keep the one that Drew prepared as is,
Yep.
and then just do the separate one.
Yep.